Hey Nath, do you know what special day it was just recently?
Well, we don't really do Halloween in Australia, Chris.
But can we still talk about Halloween movies?
Oh yeah, we can still talk about trash.
Nathan, I've heard down the grapevine that you may like John Carpenter's Halloween.
Yeah. One of my probably top 10 favourite films of all time.
I would say it's probably one of the greatest slashers ever made. I mean, you could argue that it's aged a little bit, but I personally still think it's pretty effective. It's a pretty scary film.
Yeah, it's definitely, and it's not too over the top, if that makes sense. Like, it birthed a lot of slashers that followed, but they always just seem to go too far with the body count and that. People think Halloween's pretty full on, but the body count isn't actually that high.
No, it's pretty classy for a slasher film. Like, it's really well made, and it kind of takes the high road when it comes to the violence. And we can probably attribute that to John Carpenter being such a talented director, and also wanting to make a good film, not just make an exploitation film.
Yeah, it was more less is more.
Yeah, I mean, that isn't really the direction the sequels took, for the most part.
Do you suffer from headaches? Then take Fenzik.
And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. You know, we're going to talk about the sequels of Halloween, both made and unmade. So for those listening, I've got a lot of information here about unmade Halloween sequels. Nathan doesn't know a single detail.
Unmade?
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to be talking about some of the unmade Halloween sequels. And you don't know anything about this, so this is all new to you as I introduce this information. But what are your thoughts, just off the top of your head, on Halloween 2? The one that we've seen.
Halloween 2, I think, is a great sequel because it just continues on the story of the first. It's different enough. They know he's there. They know what's out there. But then it wraps it all up in a nice bow where he's dead. He gets blown up, shot in both eyes. It's done. Put a bow on it. Series finished.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't mind Halloween 2. There's a few things in it that I'm kind of like, oh, yeah. I mean, that kind of maybe ruins the allure of the first one a little bit. Just the sheer violent tendencies of Michael, which is just them trying to up the body count. And it really was up the body count. They just kind of went, this is a bit boring. Let's put in some more kills. And perhaps maybe a little bit, the whole idea that Laurie, Jamie Lee Curtis, is Michael's sibling.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always been a little bit on the fence with that one. Because that's the big twist of this film.
Yeah, that was a bit, nah.
That girl, that Strode girl, that's Michael Myers' sister. She was born 2 years before he was committed. 2 years after, his parents died and she was adopted by the Strodes.
Oh, well, isn't that convenient?
But the fact of him being more violent, I think he's just more pissed because he's been shot so many times and fell off a second-story balcony. He's probably just really annoyed.
Yeah, true.
Just stuck around stabbing people.
Yeah, true. All right, I'll happily take that as a possibility. I think the reason why that sibling twist doesn't entirely work for me is what makes Halloween 1 so scary to me is that Michael is just this kind of random, kind of almost supernatural being that, you know, is moving through the comfy, cozy suburbs and just enacting pure evil. But when you start to give him a motivation, it's like, oh, well, that's kind of gone then.
Yeah, Laurie's, she's kind of just an animal that got in his way.
Yeah.
A creature that got stuck in a bigger creature's path.
Exactly, yeah. Whereas when they start to give him motivation, it's kind of like, yeah, okay. But that being said, you know, John Carpenter was involved with Halloween 2. He wasn't the biggest fan of Halloween 2. He did do some ghost directing to kind of add some extra violence, but he was involved in a different version of Halloween 2 that never got made. So there was a script that came before what we eventually saw as Halloween 2 that took place in, guess where, Nathan?
Where? This is interesting. Where's it? What, at the mental hospital?
No, it actually picked up years later in an environment that we've spoken about before. Starts with A, ends with apartment complex horror.
Really? An apartment block?
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah, it was meant to be in a high-rise apartment building where Laurie was now living, trying to recoup from her exposure to Michael Myers, or the Shape. And he just shows up and starts causing a ruckus again. But eventually Carpenter was like, I don't know about this, and he shifted it to be the direct continuation that we saw. There was also meant to be some brief consideration for it to be 3D.
Oh.
So they were thinking about making it a 3D film, but it was going to be mostly set at night, and it's really hard to get 3D clarity, especially back then with the technology when you're shooting at night.
Well, actually, surprisingly, that's one thing that Halloween series is missing, isn't it? The 3D film.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street's got it. Friday the 13th has it.
Amityville has it.
Jaws has it.
Yeah, Jaws has it. That's the best one. That's my favourite Jaws.
That's awesome. I love Jaws in a water park. It's great.
But, like, I don't mind the idea of Michael being in an apartment complex, but I can kind of see why John Carpenter wasn't completely sold on the idea, because it was essentially just, more of the same. And I mean, ironically, we did end up going with more of the same, but it's just kind of like this character's just mowing down people.
Yeah, it would be restrictive, that's for sure. But at the same time, yeah, all the sequels, well, except for 3, he's in suburbia, and it still feels like he might as well just be in one house.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well, because like what we get with Halloween 2 is, a direct continuation, which I'd never seen before. I'm sure it exists in sequels, but to literally pick up from the moment where the first movie ends is really interesting to me.
Yeah. The only film off the top of my head that I can think of is Demons 2.
Yeah, which came later though, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it came a lot time later, but yeah, most other sequels are like, yeah, they don't continue from that. Like, it's still that night. It's the same night.
What's going on out here?
Call the police. Tell the sheriff I shot him.
Who?
Tell him he's still on the loose.
Is this some kind of joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.
So after Halloween 2, obviously we get Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which is an incredibly controversial sequel because it doesn't include Michael Myers, because Michael Myers was dead in the lore of the Halloween series.
Definitely.
Definitely dead, like definitively dead. He was blown up.
Yeah, and shot in both eyes. Like, yeah, coming back.
Instead, we get an unrelated Halloween-themed horror film, which was supposed to set a trend of making the Halloween series an anthology series. Now, very quickly, thoughts on Halloween 3, Nathan?
I really enjoy Halloween 3. It's a slow burn, but it's a good film. Probably the worst thing going for it would be the title, Halloween 3.
Oh, yeah. If they got rid of that Halloween 3 title and just called it Season of the Witch, I think it would be a cult horror classic.
Yeah.
Because it is a true horror film.
Oh my good God. Look at the cockroaches. Oh my God, look. I got one in my fucking hair. It's cockroaches.
Obviously, after Halloween 3, you get Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, which, honestly, I have a bit of a soft spot for. Like, I don't necessarily think it's the worst sequel in the series.
Oh, man, I can watch 4 and 5. I know you don't like 5 very much, but 5 I'm just like, it's just basically a continuation on from 4, in my opinion. So it's like, okay. By then you're just like, whatever.
Halloween, yeah.
Just watch it.
Halloween 4 and Halloween 5 were, for all intents and purposes, like a single film because they were made in such close proximity.
Yeah.
So Halloween 4 brought back Michael, and then it was so popular they just rushed straight into production on Halloween 5, which is, like, I can feel that Halloween 5 is a bit, like, creaky just because it was rushed out. And that's maybe why I don't like it as much as Halloween 4. But Halloween 4 is just a solid slasher.
4 ends with the niece, and she puts the mask on and kills someone, doesn't she? And then 5, she doesn't
She
talk.
attacks someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, for those who haven't seen the film, Laurie's gone out of the narrative. She's allegedly...
Couldn't get Jamie Lee Curtis back.
Yeah. So she's dead. And instead we have her daughter, who we never saw born or any of that stuff. She just suddenly has a daughter. And Michael is coming to kill Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter. So, the thing with Halloween 4 is it is very much more of the same. They kind of emphasize that Michael might be a bit more supernatural because he essentially has super strength. And we see that in some of his kills, like he crushes someone's head. He has that amazing kill where he gets the shotgun and you think he's going to shoot it, but then he's like, no.
That is like one of my favorites. It's so good.
So this might surprise you or might not surprise you, but there were some alternate versions of Halloween 4 and Halloween 5 floating around. And I actually think the idea behind the proposed Halloween 4 that was never made is one of my favourite Halloween ideas ever pitched.
Okay.
Now, the script itself isn't great, but I really, really like the idea behind it. And it's really close to kind of my own idea for a Halloween sequel, if I was going to be making a sequel directly to Halloween 1 or even Halloween 2. So essentially the unmade script, which had John Carpenter's approval, he loved it, was essentially about Haddonfield, the town where the narrative takes place, having a Halloween festival. They were going to have a Halloween movie festival at the drive-in. And of course, everyone's like, we can't have that. You know, Halloween's not celebrated here in town because of what happened that night.
Yeah, it'd be pretty taboo subject, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and but the drive-in just goes ahead with it anyway. And the main characters are actually the two kids that Jamie Lee Curtis was babysitting in Halloween 1.
Okay.
So they've grown up a little bit now. They're teenagers in the script. And of course, what happens? Michael comes back, but we don't know if he's real or if he's a ghost or if he's a copycat killer. It's all kind of very vague. And then the big reveal at the end is that it is actually almost like a ghostly figure. He's a manifestation of the town's fear and trauma of that night. So he's almost like a supernatural entity.
It sounds very much like Cut, funnily enough. Like when you talk about, is it a copycat or is it a ghost? Or is it
it kind of predates the plot of Cut a little bit, which we reviewed for a Cinema Biosis, but it touches on a lot of similar themes. But it's really interesting as well because it's playing with those kind of ideas of, is Michael not human? Is he something else, which is introduced in Halloween 1? But look, the execution in the script's not great. It's kind of like a normal cliche slasher with just that stuff like bolted on. And the finale's a bit because it involves a ghost Michael Myers who grows to like 10 feet tall as police shoot at him. Look, so it's not perfect, but it's an interesting idea. And like I said, Carpenter loved it. But Mustafa Akkad, who was one of the producers, was like, I hate this. And he essentially pressured John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, John Carpenter's wife at the time, who was his producing partner, to just sell their shares. And then as soon as they sold their shares in the property, he just scrapped it and they made the Halloween 4 that they made.
I mean, I'd rather the Halloween 4 ending there where he basically turns into Stay Puft from Ghostbusters. That would have been sick.
Or we can merge that with the ending of Halloween Resurrection. We get a 10-foot tall Michael Myers and a 10-foot tall Buster Rhymes.
Just kung fu fight in a drive-in that's burning. That'd be sick.
Mustafa Akkad loved the Halloween 4 script that was eventually turned into Halloween 4, and when he saw that it was actually making money at the box office because people were like, yeah, Michael Myers is back, he immediately greenlit Halloween 5, and from what I understand, and the details are a bit hazy, quite a few scripts were written simultaneously, but one of the ones that was considered for Halloween 5 involves Michael being resurrected via a strike of lightning, which is very similar to Friday the 13th Part 6.
It's been done, guys.
But what's really interesting is when the lightning resurrects Michael, it like literally resurrects Michael sans evil.
What?
So he's like an innocent child in an adult's body. And the entire movie involves Michael being a misunderstood gentle giant. And but all the townspeople are like, he's a criminal. He's this monster. We need to get him. And all of the killings in the film take place purely out of self-defense, and it's Dr. Loomis like volunteering to help him.
So it becomes like a Frankenstein's monster kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's almost like a retelling of some of the movie adaptions, the early movie adaptions of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein novel.
Wow.
Yeah, but like Akkad hated the idea and he scrapped it like immediately. But I kind of think that's an interesting direction to take it. I don't know if it would have worked. And in many ways, funnily enough, it's like Psycho 2.
Yeah. He comes back, he's reformed, but then he slowly...
Everyone's trying to, like, trigger it out of him. Like, they're trying to harass him until he does something, you know?
But that's the thing with unmade sequels. After you've seen the sequel, you hear about the unmade one, you go, oh, why didn't they do that?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, these sound beautiful and, like, wonderful because I'm condensing them down to a paragraph.
Yeah, true.
Whereas, like, if you actually read the full script, maybe it's a little bit different.
Hey, maybe number 6 reads better.
Look, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we need an entire trash video to talk about Halloween 6.
No, I think we will need one for that.
We might need an entire video for 6. And I might need an entire bottle of vodka for Resurrection.
Yeah. And then we haven't even started on the Rob Zombie ones.
Oh, no.
Yes, I do believe that was the boogeyman.
What? Jesus! What?
You must be fucking joking! Use the front fucking door, the bell's working!